name is Dr. Akilah. I'm a licensed psychologist in Los Angeles.
Could you tell me about yourself? How did you get into therapy and psychology?
Of course, I decided to become a psychologist back when I was in undergrad. I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do with my career, but I took an undergraduate psychology course and really loved it. At the time, I was also considering going to get an MBA and go into the business route, but I had a couple of internships and decided that they were in healthcare administration, but I decided that I wanted to be on the delivery side of healthcare and that therapy and the world of psychology was right for me. So that's how I got into it.
I love that. Is there anything in particular that interests you about psychology?
I think for me, it's really exciting that psychology helps us understand ourselves, understand why we may think or behave in certain ways. It can kind of give us clues to our own lives. I feel like mental health in general is kind of the bedrock of life success. So when you feel well mentally, emotionally, you're able to go out in the world and do well in school, do well in your work setting, and have friends and family. So it really is important. And that is why I decided to pursue it. The other piece is that I love working with kids and adolescents. So I specialized training actually in adolescent medicine from Children's Hospital. I did a fellowship there a couple of years ago. And I love working with kids, adolescents, and their families.
That's really cool to hear. I'm glad you found a study that's right for you. How would you describe your journey as a therapist and medical health professional?
Long. I had no idea how long it could take to get a doctoral degree, and not just get a doctoral degree, but to get some specialized training. So it took me a total of 13 years from undergrad to finishing my 2-year postdoctoral fellowship, which I did not know at the beginning. But I also think that it was very rewarding, and I see it as very much like a journey. In the process of getting my education and getting trained to do the work, I learned so much about myself. And I gained all these skills in terms of self-reflection, being able to communicate interpersonally with people that actually helped me in my personal life as much as it did professionally. So I am really grateful for the journey. One of the things I can say that it did help me with is that I was really shy as a kid. And I struggled with talking in front of people and public speaking. And sometimes when I still have to do it, I'm very anxious and nervous. And at the time, I didn't know what to call it, so I just called it shy, but I was probably socially anxious. And so in the 13 years I spent, going to undergrad, graduate school, training, I kind of had to face my fear and speak publicly in front of people a lot. And that really helped me.
I'm glad you got to be able to conquer that thing that was difficult for you. Did you ever find that working in kind of like that really stressful academic environment impacted your mental health at all? If so, how was that like for you?
Yeah, I think the most surprising piece of getting a doctoral degree, a PhD, is not so much the intellectual workload, but the emotional toll that it takes on you. It's just a lot. And I don't think that I was prepared for how emotionally draining it could be, how difficult it could be, the ups and downs, having imposter syndrome, even wondering why I was getting this degree. How could they let me in? Maybe they made a mistake. Maybe I'm not as smart as these other students that I'm with. And then just having to do a whole lot of different things all at one time. So doing research, studying, doing clinical work, working, still trying to have a normal life and have family and friends. All of that was pretty stressful at certain points in my life. There were times where, for example, I had to propose a study and I didn't pass the first time. And that was really devastating for me. I was used to being an academic stellar student, always doing great. And so those kind of experiences did weigh on me. The way that I had to manage it was really being able, so those self-reflection skills I told you about, being able to really self-reflect on where I am and emotionally that I need support, and going out and getting that help, getting that support through the counseling center, through family, through friends, and also taking breaks and making sure that I was having some fun.
Just to elaborate a little bit more on what you did to cope with those feelings, what did you do that helped you cope with academic burnout and imposter syndrome? And do you still practice those things today?
Yeah. I think the first thing with imposter syndrome, I think that's what I was first dealing with, is that I was like, why am I here? Everyone is so smart. I'm like, I think I'm smart, but am I that smart? For that, the honest truth was I thought about like not being there, but I couldn't come up with a better solution or an alternative. So I just said, well, I'm just going to stay here until I come up with a better plan. I didn't. And I just did the work. And the more that I did the work, the better able I was to see that I was just as smart as anyone else. I think the other piece is that I was expecting at the time to be like everyone else. I thought that a doctoral student looked a certain way, acted a certain way, did a certain thing. And I had to work to find my own lane. So perhaps certain research wasn't for me. I wasn't interested in that. I wasn't good at statistics and I didn't really like it that much. So I just had to find research that interested me, such as the media or this idea called possible selves, which is people's thoughts about who they want to be in their lives. So I found things in the realm of psychology, which is very big and grand. You just have to find your niche. I found my niche, and that's what was helpful for me. And then I also kind of just leaned on my family and friends. I shared my feelings with people that I was stuck or that I was lonely or that I wasn't sure if I should be there. And I think just the act of talking it through and then just facing my fears was really helpful. When it comes to burnout, because you asked me about that, there are these three key features of burnout. This idea of emotional exhaustion. So really feeling tired as a result of the demands of your academic load. And then the second piece is like cynicism or depersonalization, kind of a disconnect and a pessimism, this lack of interest in the academic work that you're doing. And then the third piece is inefficacy. So feeling like you are not really competent as a student. So just being aware of what those pieces are and whether or not you fall into place. During my time, there were certain periods of time where I just I was burnt out, I was tired, I was fatigued. I would say my parents were helpful. There were plenty of times that I had to call them. They were back, I was in Texas at the time, they were back in California. So I had to call them and just cry to my mom and my dad and just get out my emotions and share how I was feeling. And it always helped that they were in my corner giving me pep talks. They listened to me and they gave me pep talks and reminded me who I was. The other piece is that I had to learn how to be thoughtful about my schedule and planning in the future. So when I got a syllabus, I learned that I needed to plan out my semester weeks in advance so that I know during certain periods, I can anticipate that this time is going to be more stressful than other times. And I have to put things in place to help myself. And then I think the piece about having fun is really important. For many people, when you become more stressed, that's when you kind of stop having fun, you stop relaxing, you stop sleeping. That's the worst thing to do and at the worst time. So I made sure that I got sleep. I made sure that I rested when I needed to. And I made sure to incorporate fun. I just kind of worked around my schedule to do that. And then the last thing I would say is that I was really good at working the academic calendar. So the one thing I really miss about the academic calendar is that you have these built-in breaks. So, you might have a week around Thanksgiving, for example, or a couple of days around then. You might have a month around Christmas time, the holiday season, and a week for, what do you call that, spring break, and then you have the summer break. So I was very clear that these times were for me. And I made sure that I planned trips, that I hung out with friends, that I got away, and I felt refreshed by the time that I came back to load up for the academic term.
How would you say COVID-19 and kind of the online remote workplace and school environment has had the impact on students or people who are studying for their careers?
I think for some students it's really tough that Many people miss being in person, seeing their friends. There's this social component of school that sometimes we kind of don't really think about. But when you go to school, you get to be around kids your age, you get to socialize with them, you get to have recess and lunch, hang out, and after school activities. And so the act of just getting out of the house and being around people your age is a part of the academic process. So I think many people just miss their friends or just miss being outdoors, miss playing sports. And that's really tough. I also think for some people, just learning online can be difficult. I know for me, I don't really like learning. I don't like online classes. I get bored easily. I get distracted because I'm on Instagram and on my cell phone. So for me, in person is much better. And so I would struggle if I had to learn in school right now in an online format. So yeah, I do think for some students, it definitely impacted them and been extremely difficult, especially if you'd have spacing issues, being in cramped spaces, if you don't have your own, area at home. So different people have different experiences for sure. But I would say that it's probably a strain on students and on teachers.
Definitely. I know you are very knowledgeable in this area about how to cope with stress and manage that. Is there any advice that you would have for people who are feeling overwhelmed or stressed, especially for students or people who are studying?
Yeah, I would say your coping skills. So if you haven't heard of that term, coping skills are things that you do to help yourself feel better or just to cope with difficult emotions and experiences. So now is the time to really build on your coping skills, to use those frequently and as much as you want or need. So for example, coping skills could be listening to music. It could be dancing, it could be taking a walk. That's another piece. I would say physical activity becomes really important. So making sure you get out of your desk, out of your room, out of your house if you can, get some fresh air, get some sunlight, and build that into your regular routine. Because when you are active physically, your body, you feel better emotionally as well as physically. That's really important. Another thing I encourage people right now is to really connect intentionally. So I know that it's difficult to be physically distanced from people. Like you can't see your friends the way that you used to. You can't have slumber parties or go to the movies, those kind of things, depending on what state you're at. In whatever way that you can socialize with people that is safe, I encourage you to figure that out, whether that's having Zoom parties, FaceTime parties, whether you are able to, with permission from your parents and because it's safe to do so, socially distance and kind of be around people with masks and stuff. Whatever you're able to do, just make sure to be social. And then with whoever you live with in your house, spend time with them, play games. I love this. What's that game? I think it's Heads Up on the phone. Charades, Uno. I think that now is the time for you to really be thoughtful about doing things that help you feel better at the same time as doing your academics. But I think many people think I just have to be academic and do all of my work and that's all I have time for. And I think that we do ourselves a disservice because we are more than just academic machines. So I would encourage you to have a balanced approach that you do your studies, you do make time for that, but you also make time for things that you enjoy, to be active and to socialize with other people.
I love that. I think that's a really good message, especially right now in that kind of age of being productive all the time. And I think that's something all of our viewers would really appreciate to hear right now.
I hope so. Yeah. The one thing I would add to that is I think rest is very important and sleep. And so I know that it's like grind all day, every day. I don't know if that really works the best for everyone all the time. So sometimes you actually have to stop to give yourself a moment to regroup and to rest before you can kind of be as productive as you want to be.
We're coming to the end of our time here. Is there any last words or pieces of advice or words of encouragement, viewers, that you have today?
Well, let's see. I think that, now is an unprecedented time. It's extremely difficult for many people, maybe scary or boring or sad. And I say that be in touch with however you feel emotionally, be intentional about expressing yourself emotionally, and then finding ways to just bring joy to your life and help yourself feel better. And be encouraged that we won't be in this position all the time. Be thoughtful about some of the fun things you want to do when outside opens back up, but also be intentional about fun things that you can do right here, right now.
Thank you so much for sitting down to chat today. We at Magnify really appreciate you and all of your wisdom that you had to offer with us.
You're welcome. Wish everyone the best. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.